The demand letter sat heavy in my hand, its weight like a stone dropped in the pit of my stomach. My ex was demanding child support for a child I'd never met, a child born before we even crossed paths. How could this be happening? The crumpled letter trembled in my hand as I sat alone in the dimly lit apartment. Demands for child support from Jennifer, an ex I'd believed I was on good terms with, cut through the silence. Yet the child, Lily, wasn't mine. She was born 2 years before Jennifer and I met. That eerie chill from our first post-breakup conversation slithered up my spine. They were veiled preludes to this betrayal. This wasn't just a legal twist, it was a gut-wrenching assault on trust. Disbelief collided with a surging wave of anger inside me. But beneath it all, betrayal's raw ache seethed deep, a relentless pulse. I knew I had to confront this, not just for truth but to salvage my own sanity. My thumb hovers over the call button. I feel a sweat break out on my forehead, my skin pricking with a chill that has nothing to do with the weather outside. Staring at Jennifer's name on the screen, my mind races with half-formed questions, thoughts tumbling over each other in a chaos of disbelief and hurt. How could she even think this was okay? It's not just the words that stung. It's the audacity of the demand that has lodged itself in my chest like a hot, jagged stone. The memory of her voice from earlier echoes in my mind, her tone so casual, as if she were asking for a cup of sugar. But this wasn't about sugar. This was betrayal wrapped in silk, soft words masking the sharpness beneath. I pressed the button and the ringing starts, each tone a puncture wound in my resolve. I paced the small living room, the carpet rough underfoot, as if seeking escape from the suffocating walls. They seemed somehow closer, squeezing me into a tiny box of my own making. Ring. Breathe in, I remind myself, but my lungs protest, pulling in air that's suddenly too thick. I can almost hear my heart above the relentless tick of the clock, marking the seconds that stretch between one ring and the next. Ring. What will I say? What should I say? Every possibility feels inadequate, a million rehearsed sentences crumbling into dust at the precipice of confrontation. She needs to hear this. She has to understand. Ring. The sound of the phone line shifting fills my ear, and suddenly I hear her voice. Hello. Her greeting feels so normal, so oblivious to the storm gathering on my side of the line. My lips part to respond, but my voice catches. It's me. I finally manage to push out, each word tasting like lead. Hey, what's up? Her tone is light, free of the burden that weighs me down. I pause, grappling with the maelstrom of thoughts. What were you thinking, Jennifer? I ask, my voice stumbling over the words, each one laced with accusation and disbelief. There's a silence, heavy and foreboding, stretching between us like an unbridgeable chasm. What do you mean? She asks, a detectable defensiveness now creeping into her voice. I run a hand through my hair, looking up at the ceiling as if it holds any answers. You know what I mean. The money. You're asking for something impossible. Her response is swift, defensive. It's not impossible. It's just... No, I cut her off, my tone harder than intended. It's wrong. Completely out of line. A pause, then, I thought you of all people would understand. I shake my head, even though she can't see it. Jennifer, I don't understand. I can't. Her sigh filters through the line, tinged with something I can only describe as regret. In that breath, I feel the fracture between us deepen, a crack that threatens to split wide open, swallowing whatever's left of trust. The phone feels cold against my ear as I lean back, I staring blankly at the ceiling as I wait. It rings once, then twice, and I half expect it to go to voicemail, for the reprieve of not having to face her voice just yet. But then it picks up, and her hello wafts across the line. Calm, detached, like a slow-moving river just beneath the surface of some icy shore. Jennifer, I barely manage, my voice tight and small, an involuntary tremor of something too large to name creeping into the syllables. I take a breath, steadying myself against the tide of what I need to say next. Why, is all I can muster, and it feels like the question stretches on forever. Why what? Her voice is almost glacially serene, each word meticulously measured, and something about it rattles beneath my ribs. A quiet fury bubbles up, hot and unwelcome, threatening to combust this tenuous thread of civility binding us. Lily deserves better, she says evenly, her tone unnervingly collected. The absurdity of those words hits me like a slap, momentarily stealing my breath. I draw a breath, letting it hiss through clenched teeth as I scramble for words robust enough to counter the weight of her calm accusation. Are you serious, Jennifer? I start, voice rising a notch higher than I intend. It's like wrestling against an invisible force, something dark and tempestuous, seething just beneath the composed surface she's presenting. You don't even know. Don't I? Her interruption is smooth, surgical. There's a practiced edge to her words, like she's rehearsed them in solitude, crafting this moment out of private shadows I cannot penetrate. It only serves to twist the knife deeper, igniting that tightly coiled rage seething under my skin. The silence stretches long between us, tense with unsaid things. I can hear her breathing on the other end, even unaffected. You think that you can just decide to play God with other people's lives? I ask, desperately trying to rein in the tremor cracking my voice. What is this, really? Some kind of power trip? There's a pause, a void thick with the weight of all those words unsaid. Her response is soft, maddeningly so. It's not about power. It's about doing what's necessary. Who the hell gave you the right to decide what's necessary for our daughter? My voice finally breaks, the simmering anger bursting through like a dam undone. I grip the phone tighter, as if holding on to it can anchor the storm threatening to capsize within me. You, she says simply, and the line echoes with it, a single word more damning than any chaos filling the space between my stifled breaths. And there it is, the fear, the uncertainty, the unfathomable abyss of what I don't yet understand about her, about us. The conversation looms over me, leaving a bitter aftertaste and the unshakable feeling that we've barely scratched the surface of something vast and disturbingly unknowable. The house is silent, save for the ticking of the wall clock that beats in time with my heart. The air feels dense, as if the room itself is holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. There's a part of me that wants to leave things buried, to let sleeping dogs lie, but the gnawing sensation of betrayal fuels my determination. I need answers. I make my way to the closet, the one place Jenny told me never to bother with, her reasoning vague, unconvincing. I brush aside a stack of neatly pressed clothes to reveal a time-worn photo album buried beneath. Dust motes swirl in the ray of light cutting through the curtains as I gingerly pull the album into my lap, the soft thud echoing my anxious pulse. My fingers trails over its textured surface, tracing the faded imprint of Jenny's initials. The album creaks open with a reluctance I almost sympathize with. Inside, faces I barely recognize smile back from another time, people who were supposed to form the foundation of her life, our life. Despite the cheerful facade, every photo feels like a potential landmine, bringing me closer to an explosive truth. Page after page flips under my thumb, memories of places I've never been and people I've never really known unfolding in front of me. Then, I reach it, a photo that snakes through my veins with an unsettling familiarity. The man standing next to Jenny has a smile I know too well, though it's been years since we last shook hands. I squint at the picture, my heart thudding painfully now. He was a friend of mine, once, back when the world felt simpler before we drifted apart. It's like my mind is cracking open, the weight of revelation pressing down on me. He could be Lily's real father. Rage and sorrow twist together in my chest, an unfurling storm that threatens to break my composure. But as the initial shock ebbs, something else takes hold, a quiet resolve, a promise to myself that I will uncover the truth, piece by piece. Suddenly, I hear the creak of the front door in the distance and instinct causes me to shove the album under the couch. Jennifer is home early, earlier than expected. My skin prickles with tension, knowing she'd always had an uncanny knack for sensing things amiss. Her voice calls out, light and unsuspecting. Hey, honey, you home? I swallow hard, pushing myself to my feet, struggling to conceal the tumult of emotions swirling within me. Yeah, I reply, clearing my throat. I'm here. As I step into the hallway, the weight of my discovery clings to me. I'm pulled between confrontation and preservation, a delicate dance on a razor's edge. But one thing is certain, I'm no longer in the dark, and come hell or high water, I will find out everything. The air in the room feels too thick, like trying to breathe underwater. I can hear my heart pounding in my chest, a heavy drumbeat echoing the tension rising inside me. Jennifer stands across from me, her eyes cutting through the dim light like two shards of ice. It's as if we're stuck in this perpetual standoff, and I'm the only one who desperately wants to break the silence. Stop playing games, Jen. I know about him, I declare, my voice trembling slightly but growing stronger as I speak. The words hang between us for a moment, suspended like the dust catching the fading light. I search her face, looking for anything, a flicker of surprise, fear, even anger. Anything that would show me there's still something real beneath her composed exterior. Her expression hardens, the mask slipping a little but not enough to reveal what's hidden underneath. What are you talking about? She asks, her voice deceptively calm. I step forward, the wooden floors creaking under my weight as though they, too, are protesting the confrontation. Lily's father. I know you've been hiding something. A flinch. It's brief, almost imperceptible, but it's there. I've hit a nerve. The room seems to shrink around us, drawing us closer together in a space that's suddenly both intimate and suffocating. My frustration simmers, threatening to boil over as I grapple with the silence that stretches between us, demanding to be filled with answers. You don't have to do this, I say, softer now, trying to reach the part of her that I used to know so well. We can figure it out, but you have to be honest with me. She turns away, her back a wall between us that seems insurmountable at this moment. Her shoulders sag, briefly, beneath the weight of whatever burden she's carrying. The silence stretches once more, this time an invisible thread that could snap at any second. The anticipation is excruciating. Her voice comes, low and edged with something raw. And if you're wrong? If all of this is just a wild idea in your head? She faces me again, her eyes challenging, yet I notice the tremor in her hands. The mask is starting to crack. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what must come next. I move closer, the space between us charged with everything unsaid, every unspoken truth demanding its moment in the spotlight. Tell me the truth, Jen, I urge, a hand reaching out but stopping just short of touching her. An olive branch of sorts. Her eyes water, whether from anger or something softer, I can't tell. But then she looks up, meeting my gaze head-on, and I see it. Finally, the quiet storm of emotion breaking free. The stakes are higher than ever, and I'm right on the edge, teetering between hope and despair. I was cornered, drowning, and you were just there. Jennifer's voice cracks, each syllable like a plea carving its way out of her soul. She sits rigid on the edge of the couch, fingers entwined so tightly they blanch at the knuckles. The room hums with its own silence, broken only by the occasional sniffle that escapes her. I feel the soft fabric of the couch under me, familiar yet foreign, as if everything we once shared is now just a mirage, constantly shifting. Her eyes, usually so determined, are now clouded, like a storm struggling to dissipate. Mismatched cushions cradle her on either side, a small reminder of our past attempts at coziness. The light from the setting sun slices through the blinds, casting lines across her face, delineating harsh truths from softer regrets. I didn't know what else to do, she whispers, barely audible over the pounding of my own heart. Her words vibrate in the air between us, each one soaking into my skin, cutting deeper than the last. There's an almost perverse relief in hearing her speak. This moment has loomed so large for so long, and now, here it is, tangible, undeniable. My chest tightens as I search her face, hoping to see the Jennifer I thought I knew. But I only find a stranger wearing her familiar mask, revealing vulnerabilities while simultaneously warding me off with invisible barriers. You had a choice, I murmur, my own voice unfamiliar, like listening to a recording from another time. No, I was cornered. Her eyes flicker with a mixture of defiance and desperation. The walls were closing in, and you weren't supposed to be affected. Her hands engage in a silent war against themselves, seeking comfort in old patterns of soothing. For a moment, I'm drawn into the dance of her fingers, remembering the countless times they had reached for me in reassurance and love. The weight of her confession presses against me, slicing through the residual warmth of happier days. Why didn't you just tell me? My question hangs in the air, almost rhetorical, carrying with it the frozen breath of disbelief. Her silence speaks louder than any argument could. The truth isn't as simple as I want it to be. It never is. I was ashamed, she admits, finally meeting my gaze, her tears now more resigned than frantic, glistening under the harsh fluorescence of our reality. And angry. So angry that I couldn't see straight. She wraps her arms around herself, a futile attempt to hold together the frayed edges of her being. The scent of lavender from a nearby candle mixes with unspoken sorrow, a momentary calm amidst the chaos. I can see the threads of solitude and regret weaving through her words, binding us in their intricate, painful complexity. The room feels smaller now, the air thicker. I can't erase what's happened, Jennifer says, voice dropping to a ragged whisper. And there we are, suspended between what was and what might yet be, immersed in a shared chasm of betrayal and empathy. And in that shared vulnerability, I feel the dawning of a shift, an unsteady step towards understanding, or perhaps reconciliation, though its shape remains obscured. Sitting across from Jennifer in that quiet corner of the coffee shop, her eyes glossed over like she'd been locked in a memory she couldn't escape. I should be feeling the anger boiling beneath my skin. The betrayal should hit like a sledgehammer. But instead, all I could muster was this strange, tenuous thread of empathy pulling me further into her story. Jennifer clasped her mug as if it were a lifeline, her fingers tense and pale. Her voice, though steady, carried an undertone of vulnerability as she recounted the choices she'd made, the ones that had appended everything between us. It wasn't supposed to. You know, fall apart like this. Her words weighed heavily in the air between us. I traced the rim of my mug, feeling the warmth seep into my fingertips, grounding me in the moment. The pain was there, an undeniable presence, but it was overshadowed, not by forgiveness, but by this soft, unraveling understanding. How had we come to this point where empathy overshadowed fury? Why? I found myself asking, not as an accusation, but as a plea for clarity. I needed to see what she saw. She sighed, the sound filled with something close to exhaustion. Sometimes things spiral and you can't catch your breath. You just run on instinct, hoping for air. A moment of silence hung over us, dense and thick. Inwardly, I grappled with the rawness of my emotions. Her metaphor struck something deep within me, the feeling of being swept away by a current too strong to resist. I didn't want to sympathize, yet I did. I wanted to hate you, Jin, but all I see is someone lost, I murmured, the confession slipping out before I realized it. Even as I spoke, the admission surprised me, but it was also liberating, loosening the tight clamp of anger around my heart. Jennifer's eyes flicked up to meet mine, a glistening film of tears threatening to spill. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered, the weight of her regret evident. We were caught in a silent understanding, where past actions and their consequences hung in a fragile balance. This shared space of melancholy understanding wasn't something I expected or, frankly, ever wanted. Yet here it was, a testament to the complexities we carried as flawed beings. It struck me then that in this tangled web of betrayal and compassion, there lay a chance, not of mending, necessarily, but of recognizing the depth of human frailty and the strange comfort it could unexpectedly offer. As Jennifer wiped the corner of her eye with a swift, embarrassed motion, I realized there was no going back to how things were. The path forward was unknown and thorny, yet somehow, sitting there, covered in unresolved pain and budding empathy, I felt a strange sense of peace within the chaos. The air is thick with a silence that feels almost tangible. I sit on the worn couch in the dim light of the living room, the world outside long muted by heavy curtains. I clutch an empty coffee mug, its handle cold and unforgiving against my hand. The room smells faintly of yesterday's stale cigarettes and regret, a sin I've grown far too familiar with. Jennifer's laugh echoes in my head, a haunting melody I can't seem to escape. It was the kind of laughter that would spill like sunlight through cracked blinds, touching all the dark corners of me. But now, it just flickers like a faulty bulb, blinding in its intensity, then disappearing, leaving me in a deeper darkness where her betrayal curdles in the pit of my stomach. I stare at the faded picture on the wall, one of those moments where nothing mattered other than the here and now, her hand intertwined with mine, each finger woven together with an unspoken promise. We were laughing then too, but it feels like something from another lifetime, belonging to strangers I barely recognize. The whispers of our shared laughter now mingle ominously with the resounding chaos of today, gnawing at my conscience, leaving gnarly teeth marks of doubt and questions I can't yet face. There's a soft creak from upstairs, and I tense, half expecting her to appear with that light in her eyes, pretending the cracks in our relationship don't show as if plastered over with cheap assurances and quick smiles. But the weight of the truth sits heavy between us, a silent companion in this house full of shadows. I close my eyes, trying to push away the sharpness of anger that threatens to cut through the tentative webbing of control I've spun around myself. The choices ahead loom like uncharted territory, a place both thrilling and terrifying. Could I walk away from all of this, from her, and the history we've built? The thought fills me with a hollow ache, a longing for simplicity that no longer feels possible. Yet, the alternative sits bitter on my tongue, forcing my mind to replay the betrayal over and over, each scene played out with punishing detail. The way she looked at him, a softness in her gaze I once thought reserved for me alone, the quiet intimacy of a whisper I wasn't meant to hear. I breathe in deeply, tasting the residue of old dreams that now only serve as bitter reminders of my own naivety. A part of me wants to shout, to let the storm inside me loose, but another part, the part that still clings to what could have been, holds me back. It's a fragile piece, yet one that somehow feels right for the moment. As the clock ticks relentlessly on, I know the decision is mine to make, whether to let love or bitterness guide the next steps. Each path laid before me offers its own kind of solace and its own kind of hell, leaving me perpetually teetering on the edge. I rise from the couch, the room around me blurred with uncertainty, and take a step into what comes next. It wasn't about forgiveness, not entirely. It was about setting things right for the child who deserved better. Walking into the law office felt like stepping onto a battlefield, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. This was my chance to do something right, not for myself, but for Lily. A bell chimed softly as the door closed behind me, leaving the chaotic world outside. The receptionist's smile was polite, yet distant. Her words felt rehearsed as she directed me to wait. I sank into the uncomfortable chair, trying not to look at the clock that ticked away above the polished wooden door. I half expected the hands to turn back in time, back to when I hadn't yet let my world converge with Jennifer's and Lily's. But now, sitting here, everything was focused and sharp. Each beat of my heart was a reminder of why I was doing this, of what was at stake. Lily's innocent face flickered through my mind, the quiet desperation hidden behind her eyes. That look haunted me more than I cared to admit. She deserved a life that was more than just the afterthought of our choices. Mr. Stevens? The lawyer's voice snapped me out of my trance. He was standing in the doorway, hand outstretched, his eyes probing yet sincere. I shook his hand, which felt solid, reliable, a stark contrast to my own uncertainty. His office was tidy, the smell of fresh paper mixing with the faint scent of lemon polish. As I sat opposite him, the gravity of what I was about to do settled in, heavy and unavoidable. "Tell me," he began, leaning forward. His eyes, sharp behind his glasses, met mine with measured patience. "What brings you here today?" The knot in my stomach tightened as I explained, every word pouring out like an overdue confession. I told him about Jennifer, about Lily, and my desire to play my part without overstepping bounds. I wasn't looking to be a hero, just a force for stability in an otherwise chaotic life. As I talked, he listened, nodding occasionally, his eyes never leaving mine. The silence that followed my revelations was intense, yet not uncomfortable. Just the space between one truth and the next. "You're doing the right thing, considering all sides," he said at last, his voice thoughtful but lacking judgment. "We can explore ways to support Lily legally. The courts often prioritize the child's well-being." His words wrapped around something inside me, soothing an edge of guilt. There was a path forward, a path I could take without losing myself. The conversation drifted into details, legal terms, and ways to help without compromising my own sense of morality. Leaving the office, I felt something I hadn't expected: hope. It wasn't immediate or overwhelming. It was quiet, a small seed planted deep within. But it was there. As the door swung shut behind me, I felt a shift. I was no longer trapped by indecision. I was moving, gaining momentum, ready to face what came next. The room is a bit dim, the orange hues from the sunset sneaking through the curtains, draping us in a gentle glow. I can feel the fabric of the armchair beneath me, the edges worn from years of habit, a comforting tether in this storm of emotions. Jennifer sits across, her features softened by the fading light, but her eyes hold a flicker of defiance, or maybe it's just fear masquerading as courage. It's hard to tell at times. Lily deserves stability, and you're part of that, Jen, I say softly, the weight of my words settling into the space between us. Her gaze flickers, and I see it, a break, a small crack in her armor. She nods, almost imperceptibly, but it's there. It's a beginning. Her lips part as if she wants to speak, but she hesitates. I watch her carefully, listening not just to what she says, but to what she doesn't. The air seems still, heavy with things unsaid. "I'm scared, you know," she finally admits, her voice barely above a whisper. Her vulnerability hangs tenderly in the room, like a fragile tendril of smoke. And there it is, the truest thing she's said all day. I lean forward, hands clasped tightly, fingers interlaced in a desperate attempt to hold it all together. "I know you are. I'm scared too. But we owe her a clear path, Jen. We owe her something real." I take a deep breath, feeling like I'm on the edge of a new precipice. "What exactly are you proposing?" Her voice trembles lightly, yet there's a current of determination weaving through it. She's ready to listen, maybe for the first time. "We need to draw boundaries. But they have to be boundaries she can understand. You have your role, and I have mine. She needs us both, but she needs us whole, not half stitched together by arguments and empty promises." Jennifer nods again, slower this time, a sign that she's truly considering the map I'm laying out before us. I can feel a shift, a new rhythm emerging between us as we navigate these treacherous waters. A rhythm of hope. She looks down at her lap, where her hands rest, tracing invisible patterns over her jeans. "Okay," she breathes, looking up with a mix of resolve and something unexpectedly fragile, trust, maybe. Our commitment is to her, and it needs to be unwavering. I'll be there to support her routines, her schoolwork, the everyday. But you bring her joy in ways I can't. My voice cracks, and she catches it, holding the sincerity, the recognition of our joint responsibility. Jennifer's eyes soften, and for the first time in forever, I see a glimmer of our old friendship. It's fleeting, but it's enough. It's a promise. And as silence wraps around us, a fragile but steady peace begins to take hold, the start of something new, rooted in understanding and the promise of something better ahead.